Aloha nui kako. Hello, everyone. My name is Leinani Lozi, and I am an outreach assistant at the International Gemini Observatory, a program of NSF's NOIRLab. In this video, I'm going to teach you how to make a Lei Hōkū, or a lei wreath or garland made out of origami stars. This video is made specifically for the AstroDay 2021 event, which is usually an in-person event held here in Hilo, Hawaii, or sometimes even on the west side of the island, Hawaii Island. But this year, of course, we're doing things a bit different due to the worldwide pandemic. So not only will you be able to go and pick up a kit to make this Lei Hōkū at home, you can also just watch this video, get your own materials, and be able to join us in making these leis from anywhere in the world. And I'm really excited to share this with you guys for this year's AstroDay, which is April 30th to May 2nd. So a whole weekend long. You have 3 days to pick up your packets. But I'm really excited to do this activity with you because this year's AstroDay also coincides with May Day. And here in Hawaii, May Day is Lei Day. We have Lei Day celebrations celebrating the Hawaiian tradition of creating lei. And so it's a really great feeling to be able to make a lei of stars with all of you around the world and practice in this Hawaiian custom. Now, to make our lei, we're going to follow this little presentation that I've created. I'm going to share my screen. And here we go. So first off, here's a picture of the telescope that I work at. Most days I am not working at the telescope. I'm actually hardly ever there unless we're doing a tour for a school group or the Kama'aina Observatory experience, which is a monthly tour for Kama'aina only, so people with Hawaii state IDs. Of course, all of that was put on hold in 2020 due to the pandemic, but we're really excited to get that all started again, to do all of these fun outreach educational activities together in person, hopefully soon. So this is a beautiful picture of the telescope, Gemini North Telescope, near the summit of Mauna Kea. And so Gemini is a twin telescope. There's both one telescope on Mauna Kea and then another in Cerro, Chile. Okay, so we're just going to go right into our activity here, and we're going to talk about two terms. One term, Hōkū lei, being one that you might hear a bit more often. So what is the difference here between Lei Hōkū and Hōkū lei? Is there a difference? Are we changing the meaning by changing the order of the words? And the answer is yes, we are. So a Lei Hōkū is a lei of Hōkū. Hōkū means stars. A lei, as we said before, is a wreath or garland. So it is a lei of stars. So on the left-hand side here, you can see that this is what our end product is going to be, a lei made of origami stars. A Hōkū lei is actually the name of a particular star within the Polynesian voyaging star line, Keka o Makali'i, or the canoe bailer of Makali'i. Now this screenshot is taken from Stellarium and is actually showing us a picture of the night sky from Hawaii on April 30th at about 7:30 p.m. So if you have clear skies on that night, or really any night after that around that time for the next few weeks, you might see a very similar sky. Things won't be in the exact same place, but you'll still be able to find these things. If you look towards the north and you can find the Big Dipper, or Nahiku, the 7 in Hawaiian, then you would just look a little bit more to your west and downward towards the horizon, and then the next brightest star that you would see near the Big Dipper in that direction would be Hōkū lei. And so Hōkū lei, you could directly translate it as star lei, right? Which is what we might call this in English. We would call it a star lei, just as we would call a lei made of plumeria lei in English. But in Hawaiian, we change that order of words. And so if you had a plumeria lei, it'd be lei plumeria, which excuse me for not knowing the word for plumeria in Hawaiian. It's not actually a Hawaiian plant. But you could have a kukui nut lei, and you would call that lei kukui. So Hōkū lei is a very interesting name for this star, but what I think it actually means is that at the end of this star line, which we're not seeing the full picture for here, at the end of this star line is this sort of circular shape, which is kind of shaped like a lei. So Hōkū lei is the star of the lei, and that is what we see here. Another way to identify that in the sky, what you're really looking at is Hōkū lei, is that Mars will be very close to Hōkū lei around April 30th at 7:30 p.m. Okay, so here is a full picture of the Polynesian voyaging starline Ke Makali'i. And of course, this is how you would see it if it were directly above us in the sky. It would make this big, long north-south arch. But this is our winter starline, and winter is over. So around sunset, our winter starline is very close to setting into the horizon because winter is over. And our spring starline is beginning to rise. And when we're in the midst of spring, when the sun sets, we'll see the spring line most prominently. This orientation shows a little bit more of what we see here in the screenshot of the night sky. So because the star line is setting in the west right now, this is kind of more what we would see. Here's a side-by-side look if you're more familiar with Western constellations at looking at the Big Dipper. The bottom screenshot here is of our Western constellations. We have the Gemini constellation, how appropriate since we are joining you from Gemini Telescope. And we have our lei-looking constellation is called the constellation of Auriga in the Western constellations. And Auriga has the star Capella. So Hōkū lei is called Capella in English. Okay, now here's just a look at how special Lei Day is to us. May Day is Lei Day. And of course, making lei is a very, very long tradition. And you would make many different kinds of leis for many different reasons. You make lei to celebrate someone, but you also make lei for perhaps a passing of someone, for graduations, for a birth. It's something that marks an occasion. And so you make different kinds of leis for different occasions. And Lei Day is just about celebrating that tradition of making lei. So how old is Lei Day? Its first celebration was actually in 1929, and it started on Oahu. And now Lei Day, I believe, is on all of the islands, including here in our little Hilo, Hawaii. We have a yearly festival in which there are performances, and it's a really, really great thing to be a part of. Okay, so let's start making our lei now. Thank you for listening. So in your packet, you will find all of these materials, plus some just images for you to keep from the Gemini Observatory. And you'll also even find a career brochure that talks about the many different careers that are offered at the observatories. But this material list is really important, especially if you don't have the materials, if you weren't able to pick up the packets. All you need are these things. And getting these specific images from Gemini Observatory might be difficult, but you can use any piece of paper to make this lei. Okay, and then before we cut up the paper, let's look at it a little bit more closely. Light from dark used to also be called the dandelion and the cosmic gecko, and this is in reference to the object NGC 6520, which is the open cluster of young bright stars on the left-hand side. So those big bright stars with the sort of bluish color are making almost a dandelion shape. And all this cluster of stars together are about 400 times the mass of the sun. All the smaller little dots, the yellowy dots, are more likely to be background stars. And so NGC 6520 is those really bright big stars that we see standing out here and that make the dandelion shape. And then on the right-hand side, we have Barnard 86, which is a very dense, dark gas cloud, which is said to have enough material in there, astronomers think, to create another 3,000 stars that would have the mass of the sun. So astronomers think that the dandelion were probably birthed within that same dense dark cloud that we see here that kind of looks like a gecko. And so the cloud was probably much bigger, and at some point part of it condensed and became an open cluster of stars. And so there's still some gas left over, and maybe one day our gecko is going to transform into another kind of flowery shape. All right, now the first thing we're going to do is take that paper and we're going to cut it up so we can make our lei. So we want to cut off the tidal edges of our paper, and then we're going to fold the paper in half lengthwise, and then in half again, and then in half again. So 3 times you're going to fold this paper. And then when you open it up, you should have 8 very long strips. Now, as you're making your lei, really think about how you're feeling and try to pour your love and good thoughts and good intentions into your lei. Because in the Hawaiian tradition, we believe that when you're creating something, you are putting whatever emotions or intentions you have at that moment into that thing. And so, you know, leis are most often given to people to make them feel good. So you should feel good when you're making the lei. So you can see that we folded our paper and then we cut those 8 strips. Okay, so now after we cut the strips, we're going to make our lucky stars. Now, there are a lot of videos online about how to make these stars. If you want to watch another video, please do. And if this video is ever too fast for you, you can go ahead and hit pause. But the first thing we're going to do is find the shorter edge of your strip, because our strips are not perfectly cut, so one edge might be thinner than the other. And you're going to tie a knot close to that edge. So you can see I'm carefully moving my knot really close to the edge of my star here, but leaving enough so that I can fold it over and then tuck it into that fold. Okay, so now I flip it over, and then I'm going to fold the remaining strip of my paper along the edges of my star. So when you fold this, when you press it against the edge, you should really feel like it naturally wants to go in one direction or another. And so you just go with that direction. When you get to the end, you might have some leftover material. You can just clip that off, and then you're going to tuck the edge of that strip into the fold. And now we inflate our star just by pinching those corners. So we pinch it gently, sort of getting in the middle there to make some tight corners. And then you have your little star. So we're going to do that one more time. So you take a strip of paper, you identify maybe one side is thinner than the other, and you're going to start on the thin side. Of course, you want your stars to be on the outside of your star. And you carefully make a knot, bring that knot all the way to the edge of the strip, leaving just enough to tuck it into the fold. If when you tuck it in, there's a little bit sticking out, that's okay, because you're going to fold over that eventually with this remaining strip. So you just gently push it up against that edge, let the paper go where it wants to go, and when you have that little leftover bit that you can't quite fold into the other side, you just clip it off and then tuck it in so that it's nice and clean edges, and then you just pinch those corners. Now, not every star you make is going to be perfect, but that's okay because you're going to make 24 stars. And so 24 stars, you know, there's some room for error, and you can always put the bad ones closer to the edges which are going to be on the back of your lei. There's our second star. All right, so do that 24 times. You're going to cut up 3 pieces of paper into 8 sections and then fold all those 8 sections into stars. Now we're going to get our Lei Hk tool ready. Now Lei Hk is in reference to the fact that there are many different kinds of lei, and they're all named as such for how they are made. So kui means to pierce. So we have a sharp-ish skewer here, which is going to pierce our star later. So first we need to attach our string to our skewer. We're going to use a long piece of tape to gently wrap that together. And then as we wrap our tape around the skewer and the string, we're going to just pull downwards a little bit so that the tape is going along the length of the skewer and the string. So we don't want all the tape up at the top. We want to just, gently wrap it in a downwards motion, as you can see in this video, so that your tape is nice and thin and a long part of your string is attached to the skewer. Okay, press that tape in good. Check that it is secure, looks great. And then you're going to go to the end of your string and you're going to tie a big knot. So you tie a knot once, then twice, then maybe 3 times so that your knot is thick enough so that when you pierce your star, it doesn't go all the way through. Now, Lei Hk is actually probably the most common form used for lei making. When you see the plumeria leis or the orchid leis or even pulkinikini leis, most often those are made through the Lei Hk style. And you would use a needle, a very long needle, to make those leis. I didn't have 100 Lei Hk needles to give to all of you, so instead we're making our own Lei Hk tool with a skewer and some string, which is really quite fun to do. You can make lei with all sorts of stuff in your home. Okay, so now that you've got your tool, the next step is to kui your hōkū, or to pierce your stars. So you're going to take your little origami stars, you're going to look at all the corners and see if any of those corners have a sort of hole. Even if it's just a little hole, a little opening, that's going to be the best part for us to wiggle our Lei Hk tool in here to pierce our star. We're going to push it all the way through out the other corner. Now, if it gets a little messed up like this first star did, that's okay. You have tape, right? So you can tape it. But if you have a very sturdy paper, some of these papers in the packets are really thick. This is going to be great for when you're piercing your stars. And so after you've got it to the end of your string, you can just repress it, reshape it. And here you can see that my knot wasn't quite big enough, so I am making it a little bit bigger by tying another knot to the end of the string there. It's not too big of a deal because in the end, we're going to tie that all up together, but we're just securing that star on there really well. After the star, you add a beautiful shiny bead and you string that all the way to the end to meet your star. And that's the first part of our lei. So exciting. Now do that another 24 times. Carefully find the hole in your star, and then you're going to pierce it, kui, with your tool. Now you could try to reuse your skewer and some other string to actually do this with some flowers. That could be really fun. Your skewer might get a little dirty, but that's okay. Or you can reuse it again and again to make more Lei Hōkūs for all of your friends and family. So we added a star, and then we add another bead, and we're just going to continue to do that until all of your stars and beads are on your string. Okay, we're almost to the end. After you have put all of your stars and beads on your string, you're going to cut that string off from your skewer. So just cut it all the way at the edge there. And then you carefully tie those two ends of the string together, and you will have a completed Lei Hōkū. I truly hope that you enjoyed making this craft with me. It was really a pleasure to design for all of you, and we hope to continue to do this for every Lei Day, and maybe even make other kinds of stellar themed leis in the future. If you enjoyed making this, then please tag us on social media. Use the hashtag AstroDay 2021, or you can do hashtag Lei Hōkū or Hōkū Lei. There are surprisingly not a lot of Lei Hōkūs out there. So if you use the hashtag, we will find you. And mahalo nui for joining us today. There's our completed lei. Mahalo and a hui hou.